Welcome into College Football Now. I am Tom Downing. Today's show is a look at some of the top available players still in the college football transfer portal. Knowing there's a good chance one or two of these guys ends up committing in the not-too-distant future, it's as we sit currently. The number one player for me is Walter Nolen, the defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. Yeah, he didn't do all that much this past year, but we're talking about a former five-star recruit just a year ago, the number 2 overall player in his class, the number 1 defensive lineman, part of a rather large Aggie exodus going on right now following the firing of Jimbo Fisher. The 2 known visits so far, Oregon and Ole Miss. Wouldn't be shocked if more come in the not-too-distant future. In theory, there's plenty of options for Nolen. So prediction time. Who lands the former number 2 overall recruit? Is it Ole Miss? Is it Oregon? Is it somebody else altogether? Sound off in the comments section. The top quarterback still in the portal is Cameron Ward, who, of course, already transferred once from Incarnate Word up to Washington State. Miami had a visit. FSU now getting a visit. I wonder if a team like Ohio State will have him because who's going to be their quarterback otherwise with Kyle McCord in the portal? And he beat out Devin Brown. Right? It's very interesting to see where that's at. I don't know if they're going to give a job to Aaron Nolen. Anyway, Ward's numbers kind of dipped as the year went along. He was really good to start the year, but there's a lot of kind of air raid style talent there for Ward. Plenty of teams need a quarterback. As the best part about the portal for me each year, it's just college football free agency, especially at quarterback. Constant movement, constant shuffling, and a lot of those guys are having great success. I mean, think about your Heisman Trophy finalists, right? Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. All those guys were transfer players. Number 3, and I don't know if he will actually end up transferring, is Princely Umanmielen, who I liked a lot, especially beginning of the year at Florida, was very impactful. I would not rule out Umanmielen going pro this upcoming. I think he could go in the draft and be a top 100-ish draft pick. 11.5 TFLs, 7 sacks, 18% pressure rate is really, really good. And he said there's a chance he goes back to Florida. I think it's more of an options open at this stage, but pretty much every college football program I think would have interest in landing him. So he went defense, quarterback, Dante Moore, kind of in a similar boat as Walter Nolen. He did play this year for the Bruins. He wasn't that great. 53.5% completion percentage, 1,610 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Kind of got outplayed by Garbers for the Bruins. But again, former 5-star recruit, number 5 overall, the number 1 player from Michigan, the number 3 quarterback. Oregon's getting a visit, despite them already landing Dillon Gabriel. The goal there for Moore would be to develop for a year, then take over. You've probably seen Michigan State, Michigan at least, subjectively linked because of the Michigan ties there for Moore. Key question. Is the transfer portal good for college football? I think it's undoubtedly good for the players. It's worked out for so many of them. But for the sport as a whole, is it a good thing? Y for yes, N for no. It's the pinned comment. If the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and go vote. Number 5, Trevor Etienne. You may have heard of his brother, potentially. 2 years at Florida, really good production, very impactful. The Gators clearly having some issues with those 2 guys going in the portal. Not a great sign for them moving forward. Georgia's been kind of a whispered link there for Etienne, so it's a good team to keep an eye on there. Kind of in a similar boat as Princely Umanmielen is Andrew Makuba, the safety from Clemson, who I think could go to the NFL if he wanted to. I'm not as high as some are, but I've seen top 50 buzz for Makuba. 42 tackles, 2 TFLs, 6 pass breakups. Not a wildly impactful interception machine, but I think there's lots of like in his game. I would be a bit anxious, though, because some recent big-name safeties, Brandon Joseph, Jalen Catalon transferred with not good results when transferring. So that has me a bit gun-shy, so to speak. Will Howard, who I think is also taking a visit to the Miami Hurricanes. Number 7 on my list, Kansas State quarterback. Put up really good numbers for the Wildcats. Can run a little bit as well. Again, there's such a dearth of proven reliable quarterback talent for all these different Power 5 schools that someone will have interest in Howard. He could even be transferring up, from normal pedigree status, I'll call it, from Kansas State. Got some college football playoff prize picks for you today. I got the more than on Jalen Milroe, rushing and passing because he's been electric. I think Roman Wilson going to bust that one big chunk play. Give me the more than 39.5 receiving yards. It's daily fantasy sports for college football via Prize Picks, the largest independently owned DFS platform in North America. You're simply picking 2 to 6 player stat projections and, in theory, watching your winnings then roll in. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description. But again, folks, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Fun player now is our first receiver on today's list is Antoine, a.k.a. Juice Wells from South Carolina. Now, he was overshadowed because of injury and by Xavier Legette this past year. Back in 2022, he was a near 1,000-yard receiver. There will be plenty of interest in adding Wells this cycle. Let's go to Trey Moore, the UTSA edge rusher, who I saw a lot of good things on in the very, very limited UTSA games I watched. But the numbers certainly bear out the impact he's had as well. 15.4% pressure rate, 17.5 tackles this year, 14 sacks. Took a visit to Bama. Texas has been linked to him as well. Certainly a good player to monitor because teams love pass rush juice. Maybe it's not going to be as good as like Jared Verse was. It's a good name to consider. Speaking of fun names, Easton Mascarenas, I think I got that one right, out of Oregon State. 106 tackles this year. Every Oregon State player is required to be linked to Michigan State because Jonathan Smith is now there. But it actually, I think, would make quite a bit of sense as well. So I do want to make sure we're getting some defensive players on this list because they tend to get overlooked. Which brings us to number 11. Deshaun Pace, the linebacker from Cincinnati. You might know his brother, Ivan Pace, who was undrafted for some stupid reason and is balling out in the NFL as a first-year player. 80 tackles, 11 TFLs this past season for Pace. Stuck in a Cincinnati made a mistake, I think, hiring Scott Satterfield as their head coach, but I digress. There will be plenty of interest in Pace as well. We will have more college football transfer portal videos, recruiting updates as well, right here at Chat Sports. Simply subscribe so you do not miss out. I have to get one offensive lineman. It's not tough to find these guys. It's tough to find these guys, I should say. Chase Bison Tias, I think that's how it's pronounced. The A&M's former starter. Not the most productive necessarily, but you've got a guy with starting experience in the SEC in the portal on the offensive line. Those guys don't happen very often. There'll be plenty of interest on that front. We're going to merge here 13 and 14 kind of briefly together. DJ Umanmielen, who is once again back in the portal, helped himself out with a better year for the Beavers, although he did kind of cool off, and I don't love that completion percentage number. FSU showing interest there. And it's Aiden Childs, who was also at Oregon State this past year. He was viewed as the future for the Beavers. Again, he has been heavily linked to Michigan State for reasons that I think are quite self-explanatory. Sticking with quarterbacks here, about Kyle McCord for Ohio State. Nebraska linked to him, despite Nebraska also being in the market for maybe finding a way to flip Dillon or Iowa, which would be a huge get for the Cornhuskers. McCord was not bad for Ohio State. The issue is they've had Heisman Trophy finalists every single year, and they've had this situation where they had Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka and all this great talent, and the production wasn't quite what you were hoping for relative to the expectations. Thought it was fair, but that is how Ohio State tends to work. I mean, they wanted to fire Ryan Day losing like 3 games in 3 years or something. So, grade Kyle McCord as a quarterback. A, B, C, D, or F. OSU always wants A's. He's probably not an A, but a team like Nebraska, it's a massive upgrade over Jeff Sims. It's a huge upgrade. Go vote A, B, C, D, or F. Number 16 then is Julian Fleming, the former 5-star wide receiver, also linked to Nebraska, and former number 1 tight end Jake Johnson. Wouldn't maybe rule out him joining his brother Max at UNC. That has certainly been linked there. He should go to Iowa, though, because Iowa takes a tight end. They become first-round picks like all the time. I think that'd be a good career decision for Jake Johnson. He was the number 1 class back in 2022. Fleming was former 5-star. His numbers fell this past season. Number 18, Nyland Green, the former top 100 recruit in 2021, a cornerback. He just beat out Jermod McCoy, the Oregon State transfer, who, again, wouldn't try to see him go to Michigan State. LT Overton, who's drawing interest from Alabama, by the way, former 5-star recruit back in 2002. He's number 19. And then Kamari Ramsey, who is visiting Ohio State, by the way, the UCLA safety. Common trend here, a couple big Florida names, several UCLA players, a lot of Aggies on this list. Who do you think is the best player currently in the transfer portal? Maybe it's Walter Nolen, maybe it's not. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Couple other small school players I want to show some love to. Joey Slackman, the DT from Penn, he's drawing some significant interest. Two very if you know where Shorter is, let me know in the comments section. It's Alan Herron, who has drawn some significant offers from major Power 5 programs because everyone's desperate for O-line help. That's why Easton Kilty from North Dakota is on this list. Marley Cook put up good numbers and good impact pressures numbers at Middle Tennessee. They've made some coaching changes. He's in the portal. Underrated quarterback name is Daquan Finn as well from Toledo. Nearly led Toledo to a MAC championship, but my alma mater is just better than Toledo in the end. But he could easily be a kind of maybe mid to low end Power 5 quarterback who transfers up and maybe gets a shot in the NFL when it's all said and done.